Hello from Orlando, Florida. I have just spent some magical days at Disney, and I want to talk about what Broadway can learn from Disney World. Let's get into it. Hi friends, if you're new here, my name is Katharine Quinn. I am a 30-something living in New York City, except right now I am currently in Orlando, Florida. I always take a couple of weeks in the winter to snowbird down here, negotiate a deal on an Airbnb. Orlando is less expensive than Miami or any of the hip places to go, and I'm a low-key Disney adult and I'm not afraid to say it. I also work on Broadway. I worked on Shucked and How to Dance in Ohio last season. This season I am working on The Great Gatsby and who knows what else. And I want to talk about what Broadway can learn from Disney World. A little bit about my background. If you haven't watched the previous video, I sort of unpack my feelings about Disney World entertainment in general, so that's gonna be right up here. But here's my quick history. Grew up a Disney Renaissance kid in the 1990s. Absolutely loved it. Fast forward 15 years. I worked at Tokyo Disneyland, then I worked at Disney Cruise Line, each for a year. Had a great experience, but was very Disneyed out. And then was like, I'm too cool for Disney. Okay, fast forward 5-7 years, whatever. The world shuts down. There's a global pandemic. I turn 30. I go through a massive breakup. It's a time of upheaval. And I went to Disney World. One of the first things I did, in the semi-post-pandemic world, is starting to open up world, was go to Disney World. My partner and I at the time were like, let's go be happy and warm, and it's mostly outside, so we're gonna feel safe, and let's do this. And we had a revelatory experience. My partner at the time also works on Broadway, and so the two of us were just this is amazing. Broadway should be more like this. It was kind of wild, just because I feel like, I talked about this in the previous video, but I sort of feel like there's this huge stigma around working at a theme park in theater or working at Disney World, which is wild because it's the same union that Broadway actors are in. And these people are making great livings and have arguably higher quality of life in some ways and a lower cost of living. So it's a pretty sweet gig. Okay, so aside from all of that, I want to talk about why I have found Disney such a revelatory experience, particularly as I am trying to make the Broadway experience better and up to date. There's so much to unpack, friends. There's so much to unpack. Let's start with, we went to Epcot yesterday. They always have Broadway performers come, I think in the month of January, maybe in February as well. It's for Festival of the Arts, and it's Ashley Brown and Joshua Strickland, and we saw Casey Levy and Patty Murin, and they sang, of course, Frozen songs. I'll throw some clips here. So good. The thing that struck me, if it wasn't just and announcing the stars of Frozen, Casey Levy and Patty Murin, we had this on the ship too. They had a sizzle reel of Disney on Broadway, which was a brilliant advertisement for Disney on Broadway, to the point where I was we shouldn't have trailers before Broadway shows. And I guess we have those screens in the lobbies that will play loops of things. I think it's a bit tricky because it's can all of the shows that are in a Schubert theater, so if in case you aren't aware, there's 3 primary theater owners in New York: Nederlander, Schubert, and Jujamcyn Ambassador Theater Group. There's much to say and unpack, and they're still mysterious to me, so if you're a representative of one of those organizations, let's please go to coffee. It's on me. Let's talk. That's not the point of this video. But is there a world in which all of the Schubert shows can have reels of other shows running in their lobbies? Or I don't know. It's weird. Having worked on Broadway for the past couple of years, it's very siloed and it's very every man for himself, and there's also a little bit of a sense of competition, and that is because there's a scarcity mindset, and that's because we aren't successful. Ticket prices are more expensive than they ever were. Broadway shows are more expensive to put up than they ever were, but we have fewer audiences than we've had in the past 20 years. So it's tough, and we're currently in a season with 14 original new musicals, okay, which is bananas. I feel like we're approaching this the wrong way. I feel like instead of the every man for himself, we're all in this together, you know? High School Musical? Anyone? Disney? We're all in this together. This sizzle reel before their concert was showcasing Disney on Broadway, and Rosie O'Donnell and Whoopi Goldberg and all of them talking about theirs, and Tom Schumacher talking about how they feel about musical theater and what Broadway can do and whatever. And it shows all the titles and clips of the titles and all this stuff from Newsies and Hercules, Beauty and the Beast, with the new artwork that they used for the London production, which is rumored to come back to Broadway, like next year maybe, the year after, I don't know. Is it replacing Aladdin? I don't know, like what's happening? I don't know. Oh, and Hercules, which I was like, tink tink, because that's about to happen in Germany. It was so smart because it got me so hyped for like the theatrical experience that I was going to have, and also made me want to go see Disney on Broadway shows, which is strange because I live in New York and I've seen all of those shows. I don't know what the huge takeaway is here. If you have one, leave it down below. I'm so curious. Like, we don't need to necessarily show trailers before a Broadway show. I know people would like literally revolt, but there is something. We have to have a more updated version than like looking in the playbill and like, what other shows have you seen? Like, I remember doing that in 2002 and it made sense when we had flip phones, but now we have smartphones, and it just feels like there's gotta be better ways for A, Broadway as a brand, which we really need to work on, but B, actually, we're gonna have a new Broadway League president. Maybe I should, like, if you're the new Broadway League president, let's get coffee and talk about that. I don't have all the answers, but I like to talk about it and brainstorm, and I think it could be fun. We gotta have more cohesive branding for Broadway. We gotta hype up other shows. I don't know, it was just such a clear sell of like Disney on Broadway and what we were about to see. It accomplished so many things, and I was just like, huh, with like the soaring Disney music behind it. I was like, I'm sold. This is great. Then the concert was absolutely incredible. So it was just like beautifully curated. It was just immaculate. That's that. Here are some other things. Cues. Disney has this down to a science. Let's take a second for customer experience in general at Disney. You don't say no. You don't say no to a customer at Disney. You come up with a very generous and clever way to offer an alternative if the answer is no. Like, I'm thinking specifically, hours of my life were spent in character greeting and maintaining lines of people trying to see these characters on the Mickey boat. People had feelings about it. People would want to cut in line, whatever. And you just like, the customer is always right, and you do not say no to the customer, so you always offer like a great experience. There is a reason why Disney is known for their customer experience. We could truly, madly, deeply learn about this on Broadway. We act like Broadway audiences are so lucky to be there, and like they should work hard to get to our theaters. Our shows aren't doing well, so like we need more people in those theaters. We need the audience to be right. We need the customer to be right. So just in general, I feel like we need a little attitude pivot on that. And again, I know I'm speaking in a royal we, and there's lots of people on Broadway who do want all of these same things and actively are working for those same things. So it's not like everyone's doing it wrong and you know, like it's like way more nuanced than that. But I feel like as a brand, we're just not as generous as we need to be. So there's that. Cue lines, oh my gosh. From the speakers beautifully tucked away in like nice plants and like everything, it always smells good. Even though it's a theme park, there's never any trash. I don't find that Broadway theaters are dirty, but the queue experience, getting into the theater, can be a bit stressful. My experience with ushers lately has been a bit stressful. I recently made a moderately low-key viral TikTok about my experience at Gutenberg, and an industry colleague was like, hey, just so you know, like people are gonna talk about that. And like, as somebody in the industry, I just want to let you know. Long story short, I paid $120 to get a partial view seat at Gutenberg, and my view was this light. I was so pissed. I was so mad. It was the one day I could see the show, and that was like, and I didn't want to spend $200 because I don't have $200 to spend on a ticket for a 2.5-hour experience. Even though Josh Gad and Andrew Reynolds in the show were great, what I could see, you know, in the nook of the light. The response that I got from my like friends in the industry were like, that is ridiculous, that seat shouldn't be sold. But like a higher up in the industry was like, just like, you should know. And this person was like, listen, I was watching your video and I was like, you're right, but you should also just know that people are gonna feel defensive about that. And I was like, yeah, except that I stand by what I said. And not only that, but if I were the producer or director of the show or the choreographer of the show, if I did anything on the show, A, they probably don't know that that seat is being sold, and certainly not for $120. B, I would be mortified. And C, that's a customer service opportunity. You know who has not popped into my DMs, my emails, my anything is anyone from the theater or from Gutenberg. But you know who did? Today Ticks. They were like, okay, Katharine didn't even buy this ticket through our platform, but this is an opportunity. That is, Disney would do that. That's correct. And I got this lovely, I'm gonna read it right now. We're gonna hype Today Ticks because this was so smart of them. Hey Katharine, we saw your video about Gutenberg and totally understand your disappointment. One of our core tenets, like telling me about their brand and like knowing that I will share this with you all, I might share this on a TikTok, is to be able to find a seat for everyone. So we'd love to send you back to Gutenberg if you'd like, for hopefully a better experience. That's That's correct. And that is like a full out Disney move. Like, you will leave wanting to come back. Whereas my experience at Gutenberg, part of the point I was making was I paid $120. I got yelled at by an usher. It was a horrible experience. I cried because it just like had been a hard day and I really wanted to see the show. And I know that's not a real problem, but it was just like $120 is a lot of money. I really wanted to see the show and I got yelled at and it felt horrible and it made me cry. If that had been my first Broadway experience, I wouldn't want to go back, and we don't need that. But you know what you do want to do? You want to go back to Disney. So honestly, like, customer service, queues. Oh my gosh. In general, we seem to be moving towards immersive theater anyway, so this all kind of works into the same universe. My favorite thing about the cabaret revival is the way that you enter the space and the backstage experience and like sort of speakeasy of it all. I don't need every show to be immersive. I do appreciate it when it happens. I loved Here Lies Love. I loved it. I loved what they did with the theater. I thought it was gorgeous, amazing, incredible. I want more of it. Even so, our lobbies are fine. Our merch isn't always great. Some is better than others, but it's usually not like comfortable stuff. It's usually not stuff I would actually want to wear. And it's usually like $75 for a sweatshirt. Our concessions are $1 million. And it's the same offerings everywhere. In London, at least you get ice cream. At Waitress, we got pies. And see, we still remember. Rock of Ages going around with those booze in the aisles, like, you know. Where was I going with this now? I'm thinking about pie. The experience. Our lobbies, we're just doing the same thing that we've done for 50 years. There is no innovation happening at all. And I just feel like we could offer an improved experience. But again, it feels like very driven by the bottom line. Like, what is the cheapest thing that we can sell for the most amount of money, for the most amount of profit, which to the best of my knowledge, primarily, it impacts the vendor a little, and it impacts the theater owners who are profiting from that as well. So I don't know what the answer is. I wish I could get the theater owners to care that the experience is like not keeping up with the times, needs to be improved. And the issue is that there is a never-ending stream of people wanting those theaters. So if a show isn't doing well in their space, they can just be like, you're below the threshold that we agreed upon. We should kick you out. And someone else is going to want to come in and use these same vendors and use our ticketing platform and give us those fees and that money. So nice work if you can get it, I guess. Cues, lobby experience, immersive. You know when you see a piece of musical theater and you're like, oh wow, I just like watched the character performers rehearse in one room, the singers be in another room, and the dancers in another room, and then they just put them all together, but it's not a cohesive story or a musical. And you can just tell when you watch the show. You can also tell when it's just like, oh my god. Like, the video projections integrate with the set, integrates with the lights, integrate with the costumes, integrate with the performances. Everyone knows the tone, everyone knows the piece, and this is just like a cohesive piece of theater. It's the best feeling. Disney knows how to do that. The queue experience, the food that they offer, the way that you file into the theater, the sitting down, the music that's being pumped in while you sit down. It's just like every single layer of the experience is just so smart and so good. Attention to detail at Disney, incredible. I've been talking for a long time already. I have a lot to say about this. We're gonna roll through some of the other things that I feel Broadway could learn from Disney. Accessibility. Disney knows scientifically how many stalls we should have in a bathroom, how many of those need to be accessible, how a stroller is going to get wherever it's going to get. I mean, just everything is thought through, and we have not done that in our Broadway spaces. They are inaccessible. Disney is accessible. And just the journey getting to the show is something, that's like probably the biggest takeaway I have of what we could be offering our audiences. That is my challenge, is to make theaters more accessible, shows more immersive, and audiences feel valued at every single step. What do you want from your Broadway experience, and what do you think that Broadway could learn from someplace like Disney World? I would love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment down below. As always, I invite you to follow me on TikTok and Instagram at It's Katharine Quinn. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, leaving a like or a comment or clicking subscribe or all three is the surest way to let the YouTube algorithm know what wonderful humans to push this video out to, people like yourself, and I greatly appreciate it as a new YouTube creator. Thank you so much as always for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.